The cargo bay door hissed shut behind Captain Jake Morrison. He was alone again. Just him, his ship, and the endless black void of space stretching in every direction. Jake wiped the sweat from his forehead. His hands were shaking. They always shook after a close call. This time had been too close. Way too close. 2 Krill fighters had appeared out of nowhere near the asteroid belt. Their weapons had locked onto his ship within seconds. Jake had pushed the Wanderer harder than he ever had before. The engine screamed, alarms blared. He had made the jump to hyperspace with maybe 3 seconds to spare. The Krill missiles had missed his hull by less than 50 feet. He was getting sloppy, tired, making mistakes. The war had been going on for 6 months now. 6 months of running supplies through the most dangerous parts of the galaxy. 6 months of dodging Krill patrols and watching his back every single second. 6 months of barely sleeping, barely eating, barely staying alive. Jake grabbed a beer from his personal stash and collapsed into the pilot's chair. The bottle was warm. The beer tasted like metal. He didn't care. He drank it anyway. Outside the window, stars blurred past in streams of white light. Hyperspace always looked beautiful, peaceful. It was the only time Jake felt safe anymore. The Krill couldn't touch him here. Nobody could. For a few hours he could breathe. His communicator buzzed. Jake groaned and pressed the button. "Wanderer, this is command. Do you copy?" "I copy, command." "Morrison here. Captain Morrison, we're updating your route. New coordinates incoming. High priority cargo pickup at Station 17. Jake sat up straight. Station 17 was deep in contested space, right on the edge of Krill territory. Supply runners had been getting hit there for weeks. 3 ships lost just last month. Good pilots. People Jake knew. "Command, that's a hot zone. My ship isn't exactly military grade here. We're aware, Captain, but you're the only runner in range. The cargo is medical supplies. Critical. People are dying without it." Jake closed his eyes. He knew what that meant. Wounded soldiers. Field hospitals running out of medicine. People bleeding out because there weren't enough plasma packs or antibiotics or painkillers. How critical. 200 wounded, maybe more by the time you arrive. They won't last another week without these supplies. Jake swore under his breath. He took another long drink of his beer and crushed the empty bottle in his hand. "Send me the coordinates." "I'll be there." "Thank you, Captain. Command out." The line went dead. New coordinates appeared on his navigation screen. Jake stared at them. Station 17 was 18 hours away at maximum speed. 18 hours, and then he would be flying straight into a war zone with a cargo hold full of medicine and no weapons except a pistol he barely knew how to use. Perfect. Just perfect. Jake stood up and walked through the ship. He needed to check everything, make sure every system was working. One malfunction out there and he was dead. Simple as that. The Wanderer wasn't much to look at. She was old. 30 years old at least. The previous owner had painted her gray and never bothered to repaint when the color started chipping off. The interior was all exposed pipes and flickering lights and floors that creaked when you walked on them. But she was fast. Faster than most military transports. And she was tough. Jake had pushed her through situations that would have torn apart newer ships. He loved this ship. It was the only home he had left. Jake checked the engine room first. Everything looked good. Temperature stable. No leaks, no weird sounds. He moved to the cargo bay next. Empty now. Tomorrow it would be loaded with supplies, life-saving supplies. No pressure or anything. As he walked past the storage lockers, something caught his eye. One of the lockers was open, just a crack. Maybe an inch. Jake stopped and stared at it. He always locked those storage lockers. Always. It was automatic, like breathing. He never forgot. So why was this one open? Jake walked over slowly. His heart started beating faster. Maybe he had forgotten. Maybe he was more tired than he thought. Maybe it was nothing. He grabbed the handle and pulled the door open wide. Empty. Just some old blankets and a broken coffee maker he kept meaning to fix. Nothing strange, nothing dangerous. Jake laughed at himself. He was being paranoid. War did that to people. Made them see threats everywhere. He closed the locker and locked it. This time he checked it twice. Definitely locked. Jake continued his inspection. Life support systems were fine. Communications were working. Weapons were, well, he didn't really have weapons. Just the shields and the speed. That would have to be enough like it always was. He made his way back to the cockpit and sat down. Exhaustion hit him like a truck. When was the last time he had slept? Really slept? Not just passed out for an hour or two between missions. Actual deep sleep where he didn't dream about explosions and screaming and burning colonies. Jake couldn't remember. He set the autopilot and reclined the chair back. Just a quick nap. 20 minutes. Then he would be fresh for the run to Station 17. He closed his eyes and tried to relax. But something felt wrong. That familiar feeling in his gut. The same feeling that had saved his life 3 times already during this war. The feeling that told him when danger was close, even when his sensors showed nothing. Jake opened his eyes and sat up. He looked around the cockpit. Everything was exactly how it should be. Controls normal. Lights blinking their usual patterns. Nothing out of place. So why did he feel like he was being watched? He stood up and walked to the window. Space looked the same as always. Empty, dark, infinite. No ships following him. No krill fighters waiting to ambush. Nothing. You're losing it, Morrison, Jake said out loud to himself. You need a vacation. Somewhere with beaches and sunshine and absolutely zero space combat. He turned to go back to his chair. That's when he heard it. A soft sound, like metal scraping against metal. Coming from somewhere behind him, somewhere deeper in the ship. Jake froze. His hand moved to the pistol on his belt. He pulled it out slowly. The gun felt heavy, cold. He had practiced with it at the firing range, but had never actually needed it. Not once in 6 months of war. He hoped tonight wouldn't be the first time. Hello? Jake called out. His voice echoed through the empty corridor. Anybody there? No answer. Just the usual hum of the engines and the soft whisper of the air recycling system. Jake moved forward carefully. Each step slow and deliberate. The pistol pointed ahead of him. His finger rested on the trigger guard, not on the trigger itself. Not yet. He remembered that much from training. The sound came again. Louder this time. Definitely coming from the cargo bay. Jake's mind raced through the possibilities. Maybe something had come loose during the hyperspace jump. Maybe a pipe was rattling. Maybe it was nothing. Just the ship settling. Old ships made weird noises all the time. But that feeling in his gut was screaming now. Something was very wrong. He reached the cargo bay door. It was still sealed. The lock showed green. Nobody had opened it from the inside. Jake entered his access code. The door hissed and slid open. Cold air rushed out. The cargo bay was dark except for the emergency lights along the floor. They cast everything in a dim red glow. Shadows filled every corner. Jake stepped inside. He raised his pistol higher. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. I know someone's in here, Jake said loudly. Come out now and we can talk about this. Stay hidden and I start shooting. Your choice. Silence. Nothing moved. Jake waited for 10 seconds. 20, 30. Then he heard breathing, soft and quick. Coming from the back corner. Behind the large storage containers stacked against the wall. Someone was definitely there, hiding, watching him. Jake moved forward. Each step felt like it took forever. The breathing got louder. Or maybe that was just his own breathing. He couldn't tell anymore. He reached the containers and pressed his back against them. His hands were sweating now. The pistol felt slippery. He took a deep breath and counted to 3 in his head. 1, 2, 3. Jake spun around the corner. His flashlight flicked on. His pistol aimed forward. A girl sat there in the shadows. She looked young, early 20s maybe. But something was immediately and obviously wrong, very wrong. She had orange and white fur covering her arms and legs. 2 large fox ears stood straight up from her head. A bushy tail was wrapped around her body. Her eyes glowed yellow in the flashlight beam. Her hands ended in sharp black claws. She wore a torn gray jumpsuit that was way too big for her. Her feet were bare. Dirt and grease covered her face. She looked terrified. Jake stared. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. This wasn't possible. Couldn't be possible. Fox people didn't exist. This was some kind of hallucination. He was more tired than he thought. This wasn't real, but she was real. She was sitting right there, looking back at him with those glowing yellow eyes. The fox girl's ears flattened against her head. She pressed herself further into the corner. Her tail puffed up. She was scared. Really scared. "Please don't shoot," she whispered. Her voice was soft, shaking. "Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't shoot me." Jake lowered his pistol slightly. His hand was still shaking. His mind was racing. 1,000 questions all tried to come out at once. "Who are you?" Jake finally managed. "How did you get on my ship?" The fox girl didn't answer. She just stared at him. Tears started running down her furry cheeks. And that's when Jake noticed something else. She was wearing a collar on her neck. A metal collar with a broken chain hanging from it. She was a slave. Or had been, recently. Jake's stomach turned. He had heard stories about the Krill taking prisoners, especially non-humans, using them as slaves, doing terrible things to them. But he had never seen it with his own eyes until now. "It's okay," Jake said quietly. He put his pistol back in its holster. He held up both hands. "I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. You're safe now." The fox girl looked at his empty hands, then back at his face. She was trying to decide if she could trust him. "What's your name?" Jake asked gently. The fox girl opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Kira," she whispered. Jake stood there for a long moment, staring at the fox girl named Kira. His mind was still trying to catch up with reality. A stowaway on his ship. A stowaway with fox ears and a tail and glowing yellow eyes. This was not how he expected his night to go. "Kira," Jake repeated slowly. "Okay, Kira, I'm Jake, Captain Jake Morrison. This is my ship." Kira nodded but didn't say anything. She was still pressed into the corner like a trapped animal. Her tail wrapped tighter around her body. Jake noticed she was shivering. The cargo bay was always cold. He kept the temperature low to preserve medical supplies when he carried them. "Are you hurt?" Jake asked. "Do you need water? Food?" Kira's ears perked up slightly at the word food. Jake had his answer. "Stay here. I'll be right back. Don't move, okay?" Jake backed away slowly and left the cargo bay. His hands were still shaking. He walked to the kitchen and grabbed some protein bars, a bottle of water, and a blanket from his quarters. When he returned, Kira was exactly where he left her. She hadn't moved at all. Jake set the items down on the floor and pushed them toward her with his foot. Then he stepped back, gave her space. Kira looked at the food like it might disappear if she blinked. She reached out slowly, grabbed the water bottle, and drank the entire thing in one go. Then she tore into the protein bars, all 3 of them. She ate like someone who hadn't seen food in days, maybe weeks. Jake watched quietly. He had so many questions, but they could wait. Right now, this girl needed food and safety. Everything else was secondary. When Kira finished eating, she looked up at Jake. Some of the fear had left her eyes. Not all of it, but some. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're welcome." Jake sat down on a supply crate a few feet away. He wanted to seem less threatening. "How long have you been on my ship?" Kira looked down at her clawed hands. "Since the last station, 3 days ago. 3 days." Jake had been flying around with a stowaway for 3 days and never knew it. So much for his famous gut feeling. "How did you get on board?" I locked everything, the maintenance hatch, under the ship. I hid in the access tunnel until you launched. Then I came inside when you were sleeping. Jake remembered now. He had been exhausted at that station. He did a quick check and went straight to bed. Sloppy, dangerous. Exactly the kind of mistake that got people killed during war. Why? Jake asked. Why sneak onto my ship? Kira's ears flattened again. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders. I had to escape. The Krill, they were going to sell me, again. Jake's jaw tightened. You were their prisoner. Yes, for 8 months. They took me from my colony when they attacked, killed my family. Took everyone they wanted and killed the rest. Kira's voice was flat now, empty. Like she had told the story so many times it didn't hurt anymore. But Jake could see it in her eyes. It still hurt. It would always hurt. I'm sorry, Jake said. He meant it. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Kira nodded. She wiped her eyes with the back of her furry hand. The broken chain on your collar, Jake said carefully. You escaped from them? At the station. There was an explosion. Fighting. I don't know what happened exactly. Everything was chaos. My handler got distracted. I ran. I saw your ship. The hatch was open just a little bit. I climbed inside. Jake processed this information. An explosion at the station. He had heard something about that over the communications. Krill saboteurs, supposedly. The station had locked down for 6 hours. That must have been when Kira got on board. You picked my ship randomly? Kira hesitated. Her ears twitched. Not exactly. What does that mean? I saw you before, at different stations. You were always alone, always careful. You seemed kind. I thought maybe you would help me if I asked, but I was too scared to approach you. So I just waited for the right moment. Something about her words made Jake uncomfortable. You saw me at different stations? How many times? Kira looked away. A few times. How many is a few, Kira? Maybe 10 or 12. Jake stood up quickly. Kira flinched but didn't run. Jake tried to keep his voice calm. You've been following me for weeks? I had to. I needed to make sure you were safe. That you wouldn't hurt me. The Krill taught me not to trust anyone. So I watched you, learned your patterns, where you went, what you did. I know it sounds crazy, but I had no other choice. Jake ran his hand through his hair. This was insane. This girl had been stalking him across the galaxy, and he never noticed, not once. What else had he missed? What else wasn't he seeing? The cargo bay door, Jake said suddenly. Earlier tonight. It was open just a crack. That was you. Kira nodded. I was thirsty. I went to find water. I thought you were asleep, but then I heard you coming, so I hid. I must have left the door open a little. I'm sorry. And the storage locker? I was looking for food. I'm sorry. I tried to be careful. Jake sat back down. He needed to think. This situation was complicated. Very complicated. Kira was a runaway slave. The Krill would be looking for her. If they caught her, they would do terrible things to her. Things Jake didn't want to imagine. But harboring a runaway was illegal under galactic law. If the authorities found out, Jake could lose his ship, his license, everything. And during wartime, the penalties were even worse. On the other hand, sending her back was not an option. Jake had seen what the Krill did to prisoners. He would never forgive himself. Here's the situation, Jake said finally. I have a mission. I'm picking up medical supplies at Station 17 tomorrow. It's dangerous. Krill patrols everywhere. After that, I don't know where I'm going next. Command sends me wherever they need supplies delivered. Kira listened quietly. Her yellow eyes never left his face. You can stay on the ship, Jake continued. For now. Until we figure something out. But you need to stay hidden. If anyone sees you, we're both in serious trouble. Understand? I understand. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kira's ears stood up. Her tail wagged slightly, just a little bit. It was the first sign of happiness Jake had seen from her. Don't thank me yet. Station 17 is going to be risky. If something goes wrong, I might not be able to protect you. I can take care of myself. I survived 8 months with the krill. I can survive anything. Jake hoped she was right. He stood up and headed toward the door. Get some rest. There's a small storage room next to the cargo bay. It has a cot and some supplies. You'll be more comfortable there than sitting on the cold floor. Jake? Kira called out. He turned back. Yeah? Why are you helping me? You don't know me. I snuck onto your ship. I've been following you for weeks like some kind of crazy person. Why not just turn me in? Jake thought about that question. Why was he helping her? The smart thing would be to drop her off at the nearest station and let someone else deal with it. That's what any reasonable person would do. But Jake had seen too much war, too much death, too many innocent people suffering because others were too afraid or too selfish to help. Because it's the right thing to do, Jake said simply. And because someone once helped me when I needed it, now I'm paying it forward, Kira smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. Get some rest, Kira. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Jake left the cargo bay and returned to the cockpit. He sat in his chair and stared out at the stars streaming past. His peaceful solo mission had just become a lot more complicated. He checked the navigation computer. 16 hours until they reached Station 17. 16 hours to figure out what to do with his unexpected passenger. Jake pulled up the station's latest intelligence reports on his screen. Krill activity in the area had increased by 40% in the last week. 3 supply ships had been attacked, 2 destroyed, 1 captured. The crew was never heard from again. This was going to be bad, really bad. But Jake had made his choice. Kira was staying. He would protect her no matter what, even if it cost him everything. He just hoped he was strong enough to keep that promise. Jake leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Sleep wouldn't come tonight. Too much adrenaline. Too many thoughts spinning through his head. He kept seeing Kira's face, the fear in her eyes, the broken chain around her neck. What had she been through? What horrors had the krill inflicted on her during those 8 months? Jake didn't want to know, but part of him felt like he needed to know. Needed to understand what she had survived. His communicator buzzed. Jake nearly jumped out of his seat. Wanderer, this is command. Status report. Jake pressed the button. All systems normal. On schedule for Station 17 arrival. Copy that, Wanderer. Be advised, krill patrol activity has increased in your sector. Recommend maximum caution. Understood, Command. Wanderer out. Jake ended the transmission and rubbed his face. Increased krill activity. Perfect, absolutely perfect. As if this mission wasn't dangerous enough already. He stood and walked to the cargo bay one more time. He needed to check on Kira, make sure she was settled in. When he arrived, the cargo bay was empty. The blanket was gone, so were the water bottles. Jake felt a moment of panic before he remembered the storage room. He walked to the small door next to the main bay and knocked gently. Kira, you in there? Yes, her voice was muffled through the door. Just checking, you okay? I'm okay. The cot is comfortable. Much better than the corner. Good, try to sleep. Wake me if you need anything. I'll be in the cockpit. Jake? Yeah, a pause, then quietly. I really am sorry for following you, for sneaking on board. For everything. I know I'm putting you in danger. Jake pressed his hand against the door. Don't worry about it. Just rest. We'll figure this out together. Together, Kira repeated softly. Like she was testing how the word felt. I like that. Jake smiled despite himself. He returned to the cockpit and finally managed to close his eyes. Tomorrow would bring Station 17. Medical supplies. Krill patrols. Danger. But tonight, for just a few hours, Jake and his unexpected passenger were safe. The stars continued streaming past. The Wanderer flew on through the darkness. And somewhere in the back of the ship, A fox girl with glowing yellow eyes finally allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. Jake woke up to alarms blaring throughout the ship. His eyes snapped open. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit. The navigation computer was screaming alerts. Jake jumped from his chair and grabbed the controls. What the hell? The sensors showed 3 ships approaching fast. Very fast. Jake pulled up the identification scanner. His blood went cold. Krill fighters. And they were heading straight for him. No, Jake muttered. He checked his position. Still 4 hours from Station 17, middle of nowhere. No backup, no help. Just him and 3 enemy fighters that could tear his ship apart in seconds. Jake's hands flew across the controls. He cut the engines and diverted all power to shields. The Wanderer went dark and silent, dead in space. It was a desperate move. Maybe the Krill would fly past without noticing him. The fighters came closer. 2,000 meters. 1,000. 500. They flew right past. Jake held his breath. Seconds felt like hours. The 3 fighters continued on their patrol route. They hadn't seen him. The passive sensors and cold running had worked. Jake waited until they were completely gone from the scanners before powering the engines back up. His heart was pounding. That was too close. The cargo bay door hissed open behind him. Kira rushed in, her ears flat against her head, her tail puffed up in fear. What's happening? Are we under attack? Krill patrol, but they're gone now. We're okay. Jake tried to sound calm, confident, but his hands were still shaking on the controls. Kira walked closer. She stared out the window at the empty space. They're hunting. Looking for something. How do you know? I know their patterns. I watched them for months. When they fly in groups of 3 like that, they're searching. Someone must have escaped. Or something valuable was stolen. Jake turned to look at her. You think they're looking for you? Kira's ears drooped. Maybe. The Krill don't like losing their property. They track runaways, sometimes for months. Years even. Great. Jake ran his hand through his hair. So we might have the entire Krill military hunting for you. I'm sorry. I should leave. You should drop me somewhere, anywhere. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Jake stood up and faced her. I already told you, you're staying. We made a deal. I don't break my deals, but no buts. You're part of this crew now. Even if the crew is just 2 people, and one of them doesn't know anything about flying a spaceship. Jake tried to smile. We'll figure it out. Kira looked at him with those big yellow eyes. Something changed in her expression. Gratitude maybe, or relief. You're a strange human, Jake Morrison. Yeah, I get that a lot. Jake turned back to the controls and adjusted their course. We need to be smarter about this. The Krill are out there. We can't just fly straight to Station 17 anymore. Too predictable. What will you do? Take the long way. Through the asteroid field near Sector 9. It'll add 3 hours to our trip, but the Krill avoid that area. Too many rocks. Too easy to hide. Jake punched in the new coordinates. The Wanderer changed direction smoothly. Within minutes they were entering the asteroid field. Giant rocks floated past the window. Some were small like houses. Others were massive like mountains. Jake navigated carefully between them. One wrong move and they would crash. But the asteroids also provided perfect cover. Krill's sensors couldn't track them through all this debris. Kira sat in the co-pilot chair. She watched everything with intense focus. You're a good pilot. I've had practice. Been flying since I was 16. My dad taught me. He was a cargo runner too, one of the best. Was? He died. Mining accident. 10 years ago. Jake didn't like talking about it. But something about Kira made him want to share. Maybe because she had lost people too. Maybe she would understand. I'm sorry. It's okay. It was a long time ago. They flew in silence for a while. Jake focused on navigating. Kira watched the asteroids drift by. Can I ask you something? Kira said quietly. Sure. Why did you join the war? You're not a soldier. You could have stayed safe. Made money doing regular cargo runs. Why risk your life? Jake thought about that question. He had asked himself the same thing many times, especially on bad days when Krill fighters were chasing him, or when he saw wounded soldiers dying in his cargo bay, because people needed help. Because sitting safe while others suffered felt wrong. My dad always said that having the ability to help means you have the responsibility to help. So here I am helping. Your dad sounds like he was a good man. He was. He really was. Another silence fell between them. Comfortable this time. Jake glanced at Kira. She was staring out the window with a sad expression. He wondered what she was thinking about. Her family probably. The colony she lost. The life that was stolen from her. What about you? Jake asked. Tell me about your home. Before the war. Kira's ears perked up slightly. My colony was called Meridian. It was beautiful. Green forests, blue rivers, mountains that touched the sky. My family had a farm. We grew vegetables and raised animals. It was peaceful, simple, sounds nice. It was. I had 2 younger brothers. They were annoying, but I loved them. My parents were kind. They worked hard. We didn't have much money, but we had each other. That was enough. Kira's voice cracked. She wiped her eyes quickly. The Krill came at night. No warning. Their ships appeared in the sky, started firing, buildings exploded. People ran, screamed. My parents told us to hide in the basement. They went outside to help others. I never saw them again. Jake wanted to say something, anything. But what could he say? Sorry didn't fix it. Sorry didn't bring her family back. My brothers and I stayed hidden for 2 days. We thought maybe the Krill would leave. But they didn't. They searched every house, found us, took us to their ship, separated us. I don't know where my brothers are now, if they're alive or dead. I don't know anything. A tear rolled down Kira's furry cheek. Then another. She tried to stop him but couldn't. Jake reached over and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. We'll find them. After the war, when things are safe, we'll search for your brothers. I promise. Kira looked at him with surprise. You would do that? For me? Of course, family is important. You deserve to know what happened to them. Kira started crying harder. But these tears were different. Not sad tears, grateful tears, relief tears. She had been alone for so long, carrying this pain by herself. Now someone was offering to share the burden. Thank you, Kira whispered. Thank you so much. They sat there for a moment. Jake's hand still on her shoulder. 2 broken people trying to survive a terrible war, finding comfort in each other's company. The moment was interrupted by the navigation computer beeping. Jake checked the screen. They were almost through the asteroid field. Station 17 was 2 hours away now. We should prepare, Jake said. Station 17 is going to be dangerous. Lots of military personnel. Lots of questions. You need to stay completely hidden when we dock. Don't make any sounds. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Understand? Kira nodded. I understand. I'll be like a ghost. Good. And take this. Jake pulled out a small communicator from his pocket. It's linked to mine. If something goes really wrong, if I don't come back within 3 hours, I want you to take the Wanderer and run. Get as far away as possible. I can't fly a ship. The autopilot can. I'll program an escape route before we dock. Just press the red button and the ship will do the rest. It'll take you somewhere safe. Kira held the communicator carefully. You think something bad will happen? I don't know, but I want to be prepared. Just in case. Jake stood and headed for the cargo bay. Come on, let's get you set up in your hiding spot. We're running out of time. Kira followed him through the ship. Jake showed her a small compartment behind the engine room. It was cramped and uncomfortable, but completely hidden. Nobody would find her there unless they knew exactly where to look. Stay here until I come get you. No matter what. Promise me. I promise. Jake started to leave, but Kira grabbed his arm. Her claws were gentle against his skin. "Be careful, Jake. Please. I can't lose anyone else." "Not again." Jake saw the fear in her eyes. Real fear. She actually cared about him. After only knowing him for one day. After he had caught her sneaking around his ship. After everything. She cared. "I'll be careful. I always am." That was a lie. Jake was many things, but careful wasn't usually one of them. But Kira didn't need to know that. He returned to the cockpit and prepared for their approach to Station 17. The station appeared on his sensors. It was huge, a military outpost built into a small moon. Dozens of ships surrounded it. Fighters, transports, even a few destroyers. The war effort in full display. Jake opened a communication channel. "Station 17. This is cargo ship Wanderer requesting docking permission. I'm here for medical supply pickup. Authorization code Delta 79. Static filled the line for a moment. Then a gruff voice responded. "Wanderer, we read your code. You're cleared for Dock 4. Follow the beacon. And pilot, be advised, we've had some security issues today. Expect additional screening." Jake's stomach dropped. Security issues. Additional screening. That was the last thing he needed with a runaway slave hidden in his ship. "Copy that, station. Following beacon now." The Wanderer moved toward the station slowly. Jake's hands gripped the controls tightly. Every instinct told him this was a bad idea, that he should turn around and run. But 200 wounded soldiers needed those medical supplies. People were dying. He couldn't abandon them. The station grew larger in his window, massive and cold and covered in weapons. Guards patrolled the docking bays. Soldiers moved everywhere. This place was on high alert. Jake guided the ship into Dock 4. The landing clamps grabbed the Wanderer with a loud clang. He was committed now. No turning back. He took a deep breath and checked his communicator. Kira's signal showed she was still hidden in the compartment, safe for now. "All right," Jake whispered to himself. "Let's do this." He grabbed his identification papers and headed for the airlock. Time to face whatever was waiting for him out there. Time to hope his luck held out just a little bit longer. The airlock door opened. Jake stepped onto the station and walked straight into a nightmare. Jake stepped off his ship and immediately knew something was very wrong. The docking bay was filled with soldiers. Not regular station security. These were military, real military. They wore black armor and carried heavy weapons. Their faces were hidden behind helmets. They stood in formation like they were expecting trouble. A tall officer approached Jake. His uniform had 3 silver bars on the collar, captain rank. His face was hard and scarred. He looked like someone who had seen too much combat and enjoyed it. "Captain Morrison?" The officer asked. "That's me. I'm here to pick up medical supplies. Authorization code Delta 79. I'm Captain Reed, Station Security. I need to inspect your ship before we load any cargo." Jake's heart started beating faster. "Inspect? Why? My ship is clean. I just came from standard procedure. We've had issues with smugglers recently. Everyone gets inspected. No exceptions." Reed's hand rested on his sidearm, not threatening. Not yet, but the message was clear. Jake had no choice. "Fine, but make it quick. I'm on a schedule." Reed nodded to his soldiers. 4 of them moved toward the Wanderer. Jake wanted to stop them. Wanted to run back inside and protect Kira, but that would only make things worse. He had to stay calm. Had to trust that his hiding spot was good enough. The soldiers entered his ship. Jake listened to their boots clanging on the metal floors. His hands were sweating. Every second felt like an hour. "So, Captain Morrison," Reed said casually, "how long have you been running supplies?" 6 months. "Since the war started. That's a long time. Dangerous work. You must have seen some action." "Some. I try to avoid it when possible." Jake kept his answers short. "Don't volunteer information." That was the rule when dealing with military officers who asked too many questions. Smart. Most supply runners don't last 3 months. Either the krill get them or they quit, but you're still here. That takes skill, or luck, probably both, Reed smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. You travel alone? Jake's blood went cold. That question was too specific, too pointed. Yeah, just me. Easier that way. No crew at all? Must get lonely. I like the quiet. One of the soldiers emerged from the Wanderer. He shook his head at Reed. Nothing found. Jake tried not to show his relief. The other 3 soldiers continued their search. Jake heard them moving through the cargo bay, then the engine room, then his personal quarters. They were thorough, very thorough. Tell me something, Morrison, Reed said. You ever transport anything besides supplies? Like what? People, refugees, runaways. There it was, the real question. Reed suspected something. Or maybe he was just fishing, testing reactions. Jake had to play this perfectly. No, never, just cargo, that's it. You sure about that? Positive. Why would I risk my ship and my license smuggling people? That's illegal. A lot of things are illegal during wartime, but people do them anyway, for money. Or because they think they're helping. Reed stepped closer. His eyes locked onto Jake's. So I'll ask you one more time. Are you transporting anyone on your ship right now? Jake met his gaze without flinching. No, I'm alone, like always. They stood there. Neither man moving, neither man blinking, a test of wills. Finally, Reed stepped back. All right. I believe you. But his tone suggested he didn't believe anything. The last 3 soldiers exited the Wanderer. One of them approached Reed and whispered something. Reed listened and nodded. Then he turned back to Jake. Your ship is clear. We'll start loading the medical supplies now. Should take about an hour. Thank you. Jake forced himself to sound grateful. Not sarcastic, not relieved. Just grateful. One more thing, Morrison. We had an incident here yesterday. A krill slave escaped during a prisoner transfer. Female, non-human, fox features. You haven't seen anyone matching that description, have you? Jake's heart nearly stopped. They were looking for Kira, actively hunting her. And they suspected he might be involved. No, haven't seen anyone like that. But I'll keep my eyes open. Reed studied Jake's face for a long moment. Looking for tells, for signs of deception. Jake kept his expression neutral, bored even. Just a tired cargo pilot who wanted to load his supplies and leave. You do that, Reed finally said. And Morrison? If you do happen to see anything suspicious, report it immediately. There's a reward, 10,000 credits. Dead or alive. Dead or alive. Those words made Jake sick. They were talking about Kira like she was an animal, like her life meant nothing. I'll keep that in mind, Jake said. Reed walked away. His soldiers followed. But 2 of them stayed behind. Standing guard near the Wanderer, watching, making sure Jake didn't try anything stupid. Jake returned to his ship. He wanted to check on Kira but couldn't, not with guards right outside. He went to the cockpit instead and sat down. His hands were shaking. That had been too close, way too close. An hour later, workers arrived with cargo containers, medical supplies, bandages, plasma packs, antibiotics, painkillers, everything the field hospital needed. They loaded it efficiently. Professional. Within 30 minutes, the cargo bay was full. Jake signed the transfer documents and prepared for departure. The guards still watched him, still suspicious. He needed to act normal, routine. Just another supply run. Station 17. This is Wanderer requesting departure clearance. Stand by, Wanderer. Jake waited. Seconds turned into minutes. Something was wrong. They should have cleared him immediately. Wanderer, we need you to power down your engines. Captain Reed wants one more inspection. Jake's blood turned to ice. Another inspection. They knew. Somehow they knew. Negative, station. I've already been inspected once. I'm behind schedule. People are dying waiting for these supplies. That's an order, Wanderer. Power down now, or we will disable your ship by force. Jake looked out the window. 4 fighters had appeared, surrounding his ship, weapons armed. They weren't bluffing. He had 2 choices. Power down and let them find Kira, or run and hope he was fast enough to escape. Jake made his decision. His hands flew across the controls. He diverted all power to the engines. The Wanderer roared to life. He pulled away from the docking clamps before they could lock him down. Wanderer, stop immediately. This is your final warning. Jake didn't stop. He punched the thrusters to maximum. The ship shot forward. Alarms screamed. The fighters opened fire. Laser blasts streaked past the window. One hit the shields, then another. The Wanderer shook violently. Jake threw the ship into a hard turn, dodging, weaving, using every trick he knew. More fighters appeared. 6 now. 8. They were swarming him. Jake activated the intercom. Kira, hold on. This is going to get rough. He dove toward the moon's surface, using the terrain, hiding behind mountains and valleys. The fighters followed. Their weapons tore up the ground around him. Explosions erupted everywhere. A missile locked onto him. Jake saw the warning on his screen. He had 3 seconds, maybe less. He cut the engines completely. The Wanderer dropped like a stone. The missile flew overhead and slammed into a mountain. The explosion lit up the sky. Jake reignited the engines at the last possible moment. The ship pulled up just meters from the ground. His shields were at 30%. The hull had taken damage. But he was still alive. He flew into a narrow canyon. The fighters couldn't follow. Too tight. Too dangerous. Jake pushed the Wanderer to her limits. The walls rushed past on both sides. One wrong move and they would crash. The canyon opened into space. Jake immediately jumped to hyperspace. The stars stretched. Reality warped. They were gone. Jake collapsed in his chair. His whole body was shaking. They had made it. Barely, but they had made it. He activated the intercom again. Kira, you okay? No response. Kira, answer me. Still nothing. Jake jumped from his chair and ran through the ship. His mind raced with terrible possibilities. What if she had been injured during the escape? What if the compartment had collapsed? What if she was hurt and bleeding and he couldn't help her? He reached the hiding spot and tore open the panel. Kira was inside, curled into a ball. Her eyes were wide with terror. She was shaking. It's okay, it's over. We're safe now. Jake helped her out gently. She could barely stand. Her legs gave out. I heard everything, Kira whispered. They're hunting me. They almost found me. But they didn't. You're safe. I've got you. Kira clung to him. Her claws dug into his shirt. She was crying. Not sad tears this time, fear tears. Relief tears. Everything at once. Jake held her. Let her cry. She needed this. After months of being strong, being scared, being alone. She needed someone to hold her and tell her it would be okay. Even if Jake wasn't sure that was true anymore. What do we do now? Kira asked. We can't go back to the station. They know about me. They know you helped me. Jake thought about that. She was right. Everything had changed. Station 17 was reporting him as a deserter now, maybe even a traitor. His authorization codes would be revoked. Every military station in the sector would be looking for him. He had just destroyed his entire life to save a girl he barely knew. And somehow, Jake didn't regret it at all. We run, Jake said. We find somewhere safe. Somewhere the Krill can't reach. And we figure out our next move. Together? Together. Kira finally pulled back and looked at him. Her yellow eyes were still wet with tears. But there was something else there too. Gratitude, trust, maybe even something more. Why did you do this? Kira asked. You could have given me to them, collected the reward, gone back to your normal life. Why throw everything away for me? Jake wiped a tear from her furry cheek. Because nobody deserves to be hunted like an animal. Because you've suffered enough. And because somewhere along the way, you stopped being a stowaway and became my friend. Kira's ears perked up. Friend? Yeah, friend. Is that okay? She smiled, despite everything. Despite the fear and the danger and the impossible situation. She smiled. That's more than okay. They stood there in the corridor. Two fugitives running from the most powerful military in the galaxy. Two broken people who had found each other in the darkness. Jake knew their lives would never be easy. The Krill would hunt them. The military would chase them. Every day would be a struggle to survive. But looking at Kira's smile, Jake realized something important. He wasn't alone anymore. And neither was she. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Wanderer flew through hyperspace. Destination unknown. Future uncertain. But for the first time in months, Jake Morrison felt something he thought he had lost forever. Hope. The Wanderer drifted through deep space. Far from military stations, far from Krill patrols, far from everything. Jake had disabled the tracking beacon 2 days ago. Nobody could find them now. They were ghosts. Jake sat in the cockpit staring at a star map. Red zones covered most of the galaxy. Krill territory. Yellow zones marked contested space, war zones. Only a few small pockets of green remained, safe zones. But safe was a relative term these days. Any ideas? Kira asked. She stood behind him, looking over his shoulder. Her tail swished nervously. Not good ones. Jake zoomed in on a sector near the edge of mapped space. There's a place called Haven. It's an independent colony, not part of any government. They don't ask questions, don't report to authorities. Lots of refugees end up there. How far? 6 days. Maybe 7 if we take the long route to avoid patrols. Kira was quiet for a moment. Do you think we'll make it? Jake turned to look at her. Honestly, I don't know. We're low on fuel, low on food. The ship took damage during our escape. And half the galaxy is probably looking for us by now. So our chances are bad. Yeah, pretty bad, Kira laughed. It was a small laugh, almost sad. I've survived worse odds. Jake smiled. Me too. I guess we'll just have to survive this together. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Jake handled navigation and ship repairs. Kira helped where she could. She was surprisingly good with tools. Quick learner. Her small hands and sharp eyes made her perfect for detailed work. They talked while they worked, shared stories. Jake told her about growing up on Earth, about learning to fly from his father, about his first solo mission and how he almost crashed into an asteroid because he was showing off. Kira talked about her home, about running through forests with her brothers, about harvest festivals and summer nights filled with music and laughter. Her voice always got sad when she mentioned her family, but she kept talking anyway. Like remembering them kept them alive somehow. On the 3rd day, they ran into trouble. Jake was sleeping when the proximity alarm went off. He jumped from his bunk and ran to the cockpit. Kira was already there, staring at the sensor display. What is it? Jake asked. A ship coming toward us fast. Jake checked the scanner. A small vessel. Not military, not Krill, probably a civilian transport. Or a pirate. Out here it was hard to tell the difference. The ship opened a communication channel. A woman's voice crackled through the speakers. Unidentified vessel, this is the merchant ship Golden Star. We've had engine failure. Requesting assistance. Please respond. Jake and Kira looked at each other. This could be a trap. Pirates use distress signals to lure in victims. But it could also be real. Someone actually in trouble. What do you think? Kira asked. Jake thought about it. They had limited resources. Helping strangers could put them in danger. The smart move was to ignore the signal and keep flying. But Jake had never been good at making smart moves. Golden Star, this is the Wanderer. We read your distress signal. What's your situation? Relief flooded the woman's voice. Thank you. Our main engine is dead. Life support is failing. We have 3 people on board, including 2 children. Please, we need help. Children. Jake closed his eyes. Of course there were children. We're coming to you. Hold tight. Jake maneuvered the Wanderer closer to the damaged ship. It was small and old. Patches covered the hull. One engine was completely dark. Smoke leaked from the vents. They were in bad shape. Kira, I need you to stay hidden. Just in case. But I can help. I know. But if these people see you, they might panic. Or worse, they might try to collect the bounty. Please, just stay out of sight until I know it's safe. Kira's ears drooped, but she nodded. She disappeared into the back of the ship. Jake docked with the Golden Star and opened the airlock. 3 people stumbled through. A woman in her 40s. A teenage boy. A little girl, maybe 7 years old. They looked exhausted. Scared. The little girl was crying. "Thank you," the woman said. "Thank you so much. I'm Sarah. This is my son Marcus and my daughter Emma. I'm Jake. Let me take a look at your ship. Maybe I can fix the engine." Jake spent 2 hours working on the Golden Star's engine. It was worse than he thought. The main power coupling was fried, completely destroyed. He didn't have replacement parts. Nobody did out here. "I'm sorry," Jake told Sarah. "Your engine is dead. I can't fix it." Sarah's face went pale. "What do we do?" "We can't survive out here. Life support will fail in a few hours." Emma started crying harder. Marcus held his little sister and tried to comfort her. But Jake could see the fear in the boy's eyes. He knew what was happening. They were going to die out here unless someone helped them. Jake made a decision. Probably another stupid decision. But he was getting used to those. "You can come with me. I'm heading to Haven Colony. It's 6 days from here. You'll be safe there." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You'd do that? Take us with you?" "Yeah, but my ship isn't exactly spacious. And I have to warn you, we're kind of fugitives. The military's looking for us. If you come with me, you might be putting yourself in danger." Sarah grabbed Jake's hands. "I don't care. Anything is better than dying out here. Thank you." "Thank you so much." They transferred what supplies they could from the Golden Star. Then Jake sealed the airlock and set course for Haven. Now he had 5 people on his ship instead of 2. This was getting complicated. Jake found Kira in the storage room. "We have passengers. 3 of them. I need you to stay hidden a bit longer. At least until I figure out if they can be trusted." "How long?" "A few days maybe. I'm sorry. I know it's not fair." Kira touched his arm gently. "You did the right thing. Those children would have died. You saved them." "I hope so." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts running through his head. Too many problems without solutions. He got up and walked to the cargo bay. Found Kira sitting there in the darkness. She was staring at nothing. Lost in her own thoughts. "Can't sleep either?" Jake asked. Kira shook her head. "Too many memories. Every time I close my eyes, I see my brothers. Wonder where they are. If they're still alive." Jake sat down next to her. "We'll find them. After we get to Haven, after things calm down, we'll search every colony, every station. We won't stop until we know." "You really mean that?" "I do, I promise." Kira leaned her head on Jake's shoulder. Her ears tickled his neck. "I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who actually cares. The Krill taught me that everyone was selfish, that nobody helps anyone without wanting something in return. But you're different. I'm not that special. I'm just doing what anyone should do. But most people don't. Most people look away. Pretend they don't see suffering. But you run toward it. You help even when it costs you everything." Kira lifted her head and looked at him. "That makes you special." Jake felt his face get warm. Nobody had ever talked about him like that before. Like he was some kind of hero. He wasn't a hero. He was just a cargo pilot who made impulsive decisions and got lucky sometimes. But looking into Kira's yellow eyes, seeing the way she looked at him, Jake realized something. Maybe he didn't need to be a hero. Maybe he just needed to be someone who tried. Someone who cared. That was enough. Thank you, Jake said quietly. For what? For making me believe I'm worth something. Kira smiled. She reached up and touched his face. Her furry hand was warm against his skin. You're worth everything, Jake Morrison. They sat there in the darkness, close, comfortable, two broken people healing each other in small ways. The moment was interrupted by footsteps. Jake and Kira jumped apart. Emma, the little girl, stood in the doorway. Her eyes went wide when she saw Kira. You have a fox lady on your ship, Emma said with excitement, not fear. Jake's heart stopped. This was it. Everything was about to fall apart. Emma would tell her mother. Sarah would panic. Call the authorities. Turn them in for the reward. But Emma just walked closer. She stared at Kira with wonder. You're so pretty. Can I touch your tail? Kira looked at Jake. He nodded. What else could they do? Okay, Kira said softly. You can touch it. Emma reached out and gently petted Kira's tail. Her face lit up with joy. It's so soft. Are you a magical fox, like in the stories? Kira laughed. A real laugh. Full and genuine. Something like that. Why are you hiding? Because some bad people are looking for me. I need to stay hidden so they don't find me. Emma nodded seriously. I won't tell anyone. I'm really good at keeping secrets. One time I didn't tell my brother where I hid his toy for 3 whole weeks. Thank you, Emma. That's very kind of you. Sarah's voice called from the other room. Emma, where are you? Emma put her finger to her lips, the universal sign for quiet. Then she ran back to her mother. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That was close. She's a sweet child, Kira said. She reminds me of my brothers when they were young, so innocent, so full of wonder. The next morning, Sarah found Jake in the cockpit. She looked worried. Emma told me about your friend. The fox girl. Jake's hand moved toward his pistol, ready to defend Kira if necessary. And I want to thank you for helping us anyway. Even though you're harboring a fugitive, even though it puts you in danger, you still stopped to save us. That takes courage. Jake relaxed. You're not going to turn us in? Turn you in? For what? Saving someone from slavery? That's not a crime. That's humanity. Sarah smiled. My husband was killed by Krill 2 months ago. They attacked our colony. Killed hundreds, took many more as slaves. I know what they do to prisoners. If you're protecting that girl from them, then you're a hero in my book. I'm not a hero. Maybe not. But you're a good man. And that's rare these days. 4 days later, they reached Haven. The colony was built into a massive asteroid. Thousands of people lived there. Refugees from across the galaxy. All running from something. War. Persecution. The law. Nobody asked questions. Nobody judged. It was perfect. Jake docked the Wanderer and helped everyone off. Sarah hugged him tightly. Thank you for everything. You saved our lives. You're welcome. Good luck out there. Sarah and her children disappeared into the crowd. Starting their new life. Jake hoped they would find happiness here. Kira stood next to him, looking at the bustling colony. So many people, so much life. After months of hiding and running, she could finally walk freely. What do we do now? Kira asked. Jake thought about it. They had no money, no supplies, no plan. But they had each other, and somehow that felt like enough. Now we find your brothers. We search every database. Contact every refugee center. We don't stop until we know what happened to them. And after that? After that, I don't know. Maybe we settle here. Start fresh. Build a life. Jake looked at Kira. Would you want that? A life with me? Kira's ears perked up. Her tail wagged. More than anything, Jake took her hand. Her claws intertwined with his fingers. They walked into the colony together, into the unknown. Into hope. The war was still raging. The Krill were still hunting. The galaxy was still broken. But in this small corner of space, two people had found something worth fighting for, each other. And that was enough.